Hey all, welcome to ShareTreck. This is Raj here. Friends, we have genomics as well as AI in our portfolio. That's what we are focusing on. So I thought, why not make a fun weekend video using AI? So what I've done is I've curated 3 topics from the news for the week. And this podcast has been created using Notebook LLM from Google. And what I did was I summarized all my points that I wanted to talk. Like if I was going to make this video myself, that would have been my script. So I gave the script to Notebook LLM, and Notebook LLM has created a podcast. That's what you're going to hear next. And I'd like to hear from you guys as investors in AI and genomics. What do you think about the quality of the podcast that has been created by AI? And I'm going to name the characters Jack and Diane based on John Mellencamp's famous song. So listen to it and give me your feedback. I thought it's only fit that we start using AI in the channel because that is the future and we have to embrace AI. With that, my friends, listen to the podcast created by Notebook LLM.
Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? Today we're looking at how some pretty different things like finance tech and even holiday spending are all kind of tied together.
Yeah, you wouldn't think they'd be so connected, but it's really interesting how it all plays out.
For sure. We're basing this deep dive on some excerpts from a recent article that caught our eye. So let's jump right in. The US stock market's been going crazy lately with the Dow hitting a record high. Remember all that uncertainty after the election? Well, it looks like the markets have made up their minds for now.
Seems like it's all about investor confidence right now. With a new administration coming in, especially one that's promising big changes, markets get a little jittery.
So basically they're saying, hey, we think Trump's going to be good for business.
Pretty much. And it's not just about Trump himself either. It's about who he picks for key positions, like the Treasury Secretary. That appointment can really signal what economic policies are coming.
So whoever gets that job could make investors either really happy or really nervous.
Exactly. And that directly impacts stock prices.
Okay, that makes sense for the stock market.
Right.
But the article also mentioned Bitcoin almost hitting $100,000. Is that connected to Trump too?
Definitely. There's a lot of speculation about how the administration will handle crypto regulation. And with Gary Gensler stepping down as SEC chair, there's even more uncertainty in the Bitcoin market.
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows that even a whisper of government regulation can send Bitcoin prices soaring or plummeting. So no clear direction from the administration yet means people are just kind of guessing what's going to happen.
Exactly. And that's why we see so much volatility in the crypto market. It's something to really think about before investing.
All right, so the stock market seems to be loving Trump, and Bitcoin's on this crazy roller coaster ride of uncertainty. Fascinating stuff. What else stood out to you from the article?
Well, it looks like the tech sector isn't doing as well across the board as it used to.
Yeah, I read that too. It's not just a simple tech boom anymore. Some companies are thriving and others are really struggling.
Right, like NVIDIA. They're a big player in the AI space, but their recent earnings fell short of expectations.
And that made people wonder if AI's growth might be slowing down a bit.
Exactly. It's a good reminder that not all tech is created equal. You have to look at individual companies and what they focus on.
So for anyone thinking about investing in tech, it's not enough to just say, oh, tech is hot, let's go. You really need to be more selective.
Absolutely. You've got to understand the nuances of different companies and sectors before making any decisions.
Speaking of specific companies, what's this about Alphabet maybe having to sell off Google Chrome? They're part of the Magnificent Seven, right?
Yes, the Magnificent Seven are the 7 biggest, most influential tech companies in the U.S. stock market. Alphabet, the parent company of Google, is one of them. If they're forced to sell Chrome, it could really shake things up.
Wow. So even the giants have their problems. It's getting pretty complex.
It is, and it goes beyond the U.S. too.
Oh, you mean how the European markets are doing? I remember the article talked about a pretty big difference.
Yeah, a huge difference. The U.S. market, measured by the S&P 500, is up 25% this year. The European market, measured by the Eurostoxx 600, is barely breaking even. It's the biggest gap ever recorded between the two.
Whoa, that's a massive difference. What's going on over there?
Well, Europe's got its own set of challenges. The war in Ukraine is a major factor, obviously, and the energy crisis is hitting them really hard. Then there's the regulatory burdens and a general economic slowdown across the continent.
Sounds like they're facing some strong headwinds.
Absolutely. And all those things combined are making investors nervous.
But the article did mention a possible upside, right? Something about how low expectations could actually make European stocks attractive.
Yeah, that's right. When expectations are already low, any good news can cause a big jump in value. So there's potential for some positive surprises in the European market.
So it's like they're the underdog in this whole thing.
You could say that. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Will Europe be able to close the gap with the US? Who knows?
It really is the million-dollar question. Sounds like there's potential, but also a lot of uncertainty. What should people watch for to see where things might be heading?
Keep an eye on upcoming data releases, especially anything about business and consumer confidence and inflation. If those numbers start looking better, it could be a good sign for the European market.
Okay, so lots to consider when it comes to the global markets. But let's switch gears for a bit and talk about something a little closer to home. Holiday spending. The article mentioned Americans are about to overspend again this year.
Ah, yes, the season of giving and spending a little too much.
And this time it seems like millennials are leading the way.
Well, a lot of millennials are parents now, and they want to create those magical holiday experiences for their kids. It's kind of like that investor sentiment we were talking about. Emotions play a big role in financial decisions, whether it's Wall Street or the mall.
I get it. It's easy to get caught up in the holiday spirit and want to give your kids everything.
For sure. But we all need to be careful with our spending, especially during the holidays. Those credit card bills can come back to haunt you in January.
Definitely. And then there are those buy now, pay later plans. They're everywhere these days. They sound tempting, but I can see how they could lead to trouble.
Yeah, they can be risky. It's easy to rack up debt without realizing how much you're actually spending.
So any advice for people feeling the pressure to spend big this holiday season?
Just remember that thoughtful gifts and experiences often mean more than expensive ones. Focus on making memories and starting traditions instead of just buying stuff. And most importantly, make a budget and stick to it. Don't let the holidays wreck your long-term financial goals.
Great advice. We all need a reminder to think about experiences and thoughtfulness instead of going broke during the holidays. Now, before we move on, I want to touch on one more thing from the article. Data centers. It might seem like a random jump from holiday spending, but stick with me. Remember we were talking about the AI boom?
Yeah, and how it's not all sunshine and roses?
Well, it turns out all that AI activity is putting a huge strain on data centers. Those massive warehouses full of servers that power the internet and all the online stuff we use.
That's right. They're the backbone of AI and cloud computing, but they need a ton of energy and space to work. And as demand for these technologies keeps growing, data centers are starting to struggle.
So what are the biggest problems they're facing? Sounds like there might be a hidden crisis brewing.
One of the biggest challenges is finding enough energy to power them sustainably. We're talking massive amounts of electricity. Renewables like solar and wind are part of the solution, but they can't do it alone. Not yet, at least.
But if renewables aren't enough, what are they using?
For now, they'll probably have to rely on a mix of sources, including natural gas.
So it's a complicated situation with no easy answers.
Yeah.
I'm guessing this has some implications for our environmental goals.
Absolutely. Finding sustainable ways to power data centers is critical if we want to keep enjoying the benefits of technology without destroying the planet.
It's a reminder that even the everyday things we do online, like browsing the internet or using our phones, are connected to these bigger global trends.
Exactly. And it shows how things like finance tech and even holiday spending are all intertwined in ways we might not expect.
This is a lot to take in. We've gone from the stock market loving Trump to European markets struggling to Bitcoin going wild to millennials overspending, and now we're talking about data centers gobbling up energy. What a ride.
It has been quite a journey, and there's still more to explore.
That's right. We'll be back in a moment to continue our deep dive. Stay with us. Welcome back to our deep dive. We covered a lot in the first part.
Yeah, it's amazing how connected everything is, like finance tech, even our own habits.
One thing that really stood out to me is how important it is to understand the why behind all these trends. It's not enough to just know that the market's up or that Bitcoin's doing its crazy thing.
Right. It's about digging deeper, understanding the factors that are driving these changes. That's where you find those connections and patterns that help you make sense of it all.
Like when we talk about how those political appointments, especially in finance, can really affect investor confidence.
Exactly. Remember the Treasury Secretary pick? That's not just a name on a piece of paper. That signals the whole direction of economic policy. And that has a huge impact on how investors feel and react.
And then there's Bitcoin, which is a whole different animal. It seems like anytime the government even mentions regulating crypto, Bitcoin goes haywire.
It just shows you how powerful regulation can be. It creates so much uncertainty for investors. When the rules aren't clear, people don't know how to react. And that applies to everyone, from Wall Street pros to everyday people just starting out with crypto.
It's a good reminder that knowledge is power,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to money. But this isn't just about the big guys in the stock market. We also talked about how these global forces can affect our personal finances, like all that pressure to overspend during the holidays.
Yeah, it's easy to forget that our decisions aren't made in a vacuum. We're influenced by social pressures, marketing messages, and even global economic trends, whether we realize it or not.
So how do we navigate all this? How do we make sure we're not just being swept along by these forces, but actually making choices that are right for us?
Well, the first step is to stay informed. Pay attention to the news, read articles, listen to podcasts. The more you understand about what's happening in the world, the better decisions you can make.
That's what we're trying to do here on the deep dive, right? Help people connect the dots, see the bigger picture.
Absolutely. But it's not just about passively absorbing information either. You have to engage with it critically, question assumptions, seek out different perspectives.
Especially these days when we're bombarded with information from all sides.
Exactly. Critical thinking is more important than ever. And part of that is realizing that there's rarely one right answer when it comes to complex issues. It's about being comfortable with nuance and uncertainty.
Speaking of complex issues, I want to circle back to the challenges data centers are facing. They're quietly powering our digital lives, but they're also facing some serious problems, especially with energy consumption and sustainability.
It comes down to supply and demand. As we rely more and more on technology, the demand for data centers just keeps growing. And meeting that demand requires a ton of energy, which is where things get complicated.
We talked about how renewables are part of this solution, but they can't do it all on their own. Not yet, at least.
Right. For now, they'll probably need a mix of energy sources, including natural gas. And that's where the environmental concerns come into play.
It's like a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
We love the convenience of our digital lives, but we also have to think about the environmental cost of all that data processing and storage.
Exactly. It's about finding a balance, enjoying the benefits of technology without destroying the planet, finding that sweet spot where progress and responsibility meet.
Well said. Before we move on to the last part of our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. Given all these demands on data centers and the environmental concerns, what kind of solutions do you think could help address this challenge?
Ooh, love a good brain teaser. That's a great question because it's not just about analyzing the problem, it's about finding solutions. It's about looking beyond the challenges and imagining a more sustainable future. And we'll be back in just a moment to talk about exactly that. Stay tuned.
And we're back for the final part of our deep dive. We've covered a ton of ground today, from the markets to holiday spending to those data centers that are quietly powering our digital world.
It's been fascinating to see how all these seemingly separate things are actually connected in so many ways.
Before the break, we challenged everyone to think about some innovative solutions for those growing demands on data centers and the environmental concerns that come with them.
So let's get into it. One area with a lot of potential is energy efficiency. If we can make the data centers themselves use less energy, that would be huge.
Okay, but how do you even make a data center more energy efficient? Is it just like switching to LED light bulbs?
Voila. Haha. It's a bit more complicated than that, but the idea is similar. We're talking about optimizing cooling systems, using more efficient servers, and even exploring different computing architectures that require less power.
So it's about finding efficiencies at every level. A whole system approach.
Exactly. And that's where AI can actually be really helpful. AI can analyze how the data center is operating in real time and find areas where you can cut energy use without sacrificing performance.
That's pretty cool. It's like having a super smart energy manager on the job 24/7. What other solutions are out there?
Another interesting idea is changing where we build data centers. Traditionally, they've been built in or near big cities, close to the users. But those urban areas are expensive and space is limited.
So the solution is to build them in the middle of nowhere.
Not exactly, but maybe in more remote locations that have certain advantages. Like, imagine building a data center next to a wind farm in the Midwest or a giant solar farm in the desert. Being close to the source of renewable energy would cut down on transmission losses and reliance on fossil fuels.
That makes a lot of sense. It's thinking outside the box and using geography to your advantage.
Right. It's about seeing the big picture and getting creative. And then there's this new idea that's gaining traction: waste heat recovery.
Waste heat recovery. Now that sounds interesting. Tell me more.
So think about it. Data centers produce a ton of heat, which is usually just vented out into the air.
Right, because they need those massive cooling systems to keep everything running.
Exactly. But what if we could capture that waste heat and actually use it for something else, like heating buildings, powering industrial processes, or even generating electricity.
So you're turning a problem into a solution. That's pretty smart.
It is. And it shows how truly sustainable solutions often require a more holistic approach. It's about looking at the entire life cycle of something and finding those win-win situations.
It all comes back to that interconnectedness we were talking about earlier. Everything is linked in some way.
Exactly. And it's something to always keep in mind as we try to make sense of this crazy world, whether it's the global markets or in finances or even the technology that's become so essential to our lives. It's all connected.
This has been an amazing deep dive. We've gone from Wall Street to data centers and uncovered connections I bet most people never even thought about.
We've explored the challenges and the opportunities, and hopefully we've inspired some people to think differently about these issues.
More than anything, I think we've shown how important it is to think critically and really understand the why behind things.
Because at the end of the day, knowledge is power. The more we understand about how the world works, the better decisions we can make and the better future we can create.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with one final thought. Never stop exploring. Never stop questioning. And never underestimate the power of your own curiosity.
Until next time, keep diving deep.